same truck, same brake job, same shop on the same corner. I want you to hold 3 moments in your head at once. First moment, a few years back. You bring the truck in for front pads and rotors. They hand you a printed slip. You grumble a little. You pay it. You drive home. Second moment, about 2 years after that. Same job, same truck, and the number at the bottom of the slip is bigger. Not shockingly bigger, just enough that you notice. And you tell yourself, fine, everything costs more now. Third moment, this year, same pads, same rotors, same 2 hours of labor. And the total has climbed again, enough that you actually stop in the parking lot and stare at the paper before you fold it into your pocket. 3 visits, 1 truck, a number that only ever moves in one direction. Now, the easy story is that your mechanic got greedy. That's the story a lot of people tell themselves standing in that parking lot, and it's almost always the wrong one. Because the reason that number keeps climbing didn't start at the shop, it started a long way from that counter before that box of brake pads was ever sitting on a shelf. And once you can see the whole path that one part travels, the invoice stops being a mystery and starts being a map. I'm Ellen. I read the fine print, so you don't have to. Today we're going to follow one ordinary brake job from a shipping dock all the way to your bank account and figure out exactly whose hands your money passes through on the way down. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll know what to ask before you ever hand over a card again. Before we get into it, a lot of what I end up digging into, I collected into one place, a field manual I call What the Record Actually Says About Your Car. It's down in the description if you'd like to download it and keep it nearby. That's the whole pitch. Back to your brakes. Here's the thing people miss. A brake pad is not a local product. That little box on the shelf at your parts store looks like it materialized there, but it didn't. A huge share of the replacement parts that go into American vehicles come from somewhere else. By one industry count, roughly 2 out of every 5 repair parts an automaker uses are imported. 2 out of 5. So when the cost of bringing a part across the border changes, it doesn't change a little corner of the repair world, it changes the floor under all of it. And the cost of bringing parts across the border did change. In March of 2025, a proclamation went out under a trade rule called Section 232. That's the tool that lets the government put tariffs on imports it decides are tied to national security. The specific order is Proclamation 10,908, and you can read it yourself in the Federal Register. I'll come back to that because I want you to see the receipt. What it did was put a 25% tariff on imported vehicles. And then, a month later, a 25% tariff on a long list of imported auto parts. The vehicle tariff took effect on April 3rd, 2025. The parts tariff took effect on May 3rd, 2025. 25% on the customs value of the part, written as a real check to customs at the border before that part ever gets near a shelf. Now, let me back up for a second, because I don't want to overstate this. And this is exactly the kind of place where channels like to inflate the number for drama. The tariff is not the reason your brake job doubled. Your brake job did not double. What actually happened is slower and honestly more interesting. Repair and maintenance costs in this country have been climbing for years. Government price data shows the cost of vehicle maintenance and repair rose by roughly a quarter from the start of 2022 to the middle of 2024. That's the 25% in the title, and I want to be straight with you about it. That's a multi-year climb, and most of it happened before this tariff existed. Technician shortages, more complicated cars, general inflation, all of that was already pushing the number up. The tariff is the newest layer on top of a pile that was already growing. It's not the whole story. It's the part that just got added, and it's the part almost nobody has explained to you in plain language. So let's do that. Follow the money. Watch where your dollars actually go, hand to hand, on the way from the border to your driveway. Hand number 1, the importer. Somebody has to be the company that officially brings that box of pads into the country. When it clears customs, that importer pays the 25%. That's not a paperwork abstraction, that's a real cost that lands on a real business the moment the shipment arrives. Now, that importer has a choice. They can eat that cost and shrink their own profit, or they can pass it forward. Some eat part of it, at least for a while, to stay competitive. But you cannot run a business absorbing a 25% hit forever, so most of it moves forward. Hand number 2, the distributor, the big warehouse that buys from the importer and supplies the region. They just paid more for that box. They add their margin on the new, higher price. Notice what happened there. The markup isn't a flat dollar amount, it's a percentage of the cost. So when the base cost goes up, the markup on top of it goes up too, automatically. The increase doesn't just get passed along, it gets slightly amplified at every stop. Hand number 3, your local parts store, the one the shop actually calls. They buy from the distributor at the higher price, and they add their piece. Hand number 4, the repair shop. This is the hand you can actually see, so this is the one that gets blamed. The shop buys the part from the store, marks it up, and yes, shops mark up parts. That's a normal, ordinary part of how a shop stays open, and then adds the labor to install it. And here's what's easy to forget while you're glaring at that invoice. The shop's own costs went up too, and not just for that part. Skilled technicians are hard to find and cost more to keep. The equipment keeps getting more expensive, especially now that so many repairs involve sensors and cameras that have to be recalibrated. Shop supplies, insurance, rent, all of it climbing at the same time. So when you stand at that counter and the guy scans your VIN and the printer spits out a number that makes you blink, you are not looking at one greedy decision. You're looking at the sum of 4 or 5 separate businesses, each one passing along a cost it also got handed, each one taking its normal cut of a bigger base. Your brake job is the last stop on a chain, and you're the one standing at the end of it with your wallet out. And honestly, part of that's fair. Every one of those hands is doing something real. The importer really did pay the duty. The shop really did do the work. Nobody in that chain is a villain. That's the part that makes people crazy. Actually, there's no bad guy to point at. There's just a system where costs get added at the top and roll downhill, and you live at the bottom of the hill. Let me steelman the whole thing for a minute, because you deserve the other side stated fairly before I say another word. The stated reason for these tariffs is national security and rebuilding American manufacturing. The argument goes like this. For decades, more and more of the parts that go into our cars have been made somewhere else. That makes the supply chain fragile, and it moves jobs out of the country. Put a tariff on the imported version, the thinking goes, and you make it worth someone's while to build that part here instead. More factories here, more jobs here, a supply chain that doesn't snap the next time the world gets messy. Whether that actually works, whether the factories come, whether the jobs show up, whether it's worth what it costs you at the counter, that's a genuine debate. And I'm not here to settle it or tell you how to feel about it. I'm just telling you the argument exists, and it's not a stupid one. There are serious people on both sides. But here's what the argument doesn't do. It doesn't make your brake job cheaper this year. The factories, if they come slowly. The tariff lands today, and in the gap between the two, the person holding the bill is you. Now let's look at the receipts on how much this actually adds, because I don't want you walking away thinking your whole invoice is tariff. It isn't. Independent tracking of parts prices showed them rising by more than 6% across the middle of last year, and analysts pinned most of that jump on tariffs working their way through supplier pricing. On a typical repair that uses a tariffed part, one estimate put the added costs somewhere in the range of $20 to $50. Other tracking found that existing tariffs were adding around $100 to the part side of certain jobs. So we're not talking about your bill tripling. We're talking about a real, steady push, tens of dollars here, $100 there, sitting on top of every other thing that was already making repairs cost more. And I have to be honest about something, because this is where a lot of people would hand you a fake precise number. Nobody can tell you exactly how many dollars of your specific brake invoice is the tariff, versus labor, versus normal inflation, versus your particular shop's markup. Those threads are braided together by the time they reach you. Anyone who gives you one clean figure for the tariff slice of your personal bill is guessing. What's confirmed is that the duty is real. It's 25% on covered imported parts, and it started in May of 2025. How it splits out on your paper, at your shop, on your truck, that part is a fog, and I'd rather tell you it's a fog than pretend I can see through it. Okay, so that's the part of the story you feel directly, at the counter, out of your own pocket. But there's a second path your money takes, and this one is quieter, and it reaches even the people who never had a repair at all. Say it's not a brake job you're paying for. Say it's a fender bender, and it's a claim. Now, the shop bill doesn't come to you, it goes to your insurance company. Same rising parts costs, same longer, pricier repair, especially on newer cars stuffed with sensors. The insurer pays the bigger number, and they don't just pay it once and forget it. They pay it across thousands of claims every month in your state. Then they do what insurers do. They look at what it now costs to fix the average car, and they reset the premium so the math still works for them. That's the second path. Higher parts, higher repair bills, bigger claim payouts, and then premiums that climb to cover it. And you pay that one whether or not you ever crash, whether or not you ever set foot in a shop, because it's baked into what everybody around you pays too. Auto insurance premiums jumped by more than 11% in a single recent year. Not all of that is parts, not by a long shot. But the cost of fixing cars is one of the biggest ingredients in what you pay to insure one. And that ingredient has been getting more expensive from every direction at once. So the same pressure hits you twice. Once loud, at the counter, when you pay for the part yourself. Once quiet, on your policy, spread out where you can't see it. Costs don't disappear when they leave the border. They just move, and they keep moving until they find you. Here's the honest shape of it. No drama attached. There's no secret room where someone planned for your brake job to cost more so your premium could go up too. That's not how this works, and I'm not going to pretend it is. What there is a set of businesses whose incentives happen to line up. The importer wants to protect its margin. The distributor and the store want theirs. The shop needs to cover its rising costs. The insurer needs the math to work. Nobody has to coordinate. Each one just does the sensible thing for itself, and the sum of all those sensible decisions is a bill that keeps getting bigger for you. Aligned incentives don't need a conspiracy. That's just economics doing what economics does. That's my read on it, and I think the record backs it up. There are winners in here too, by the way, and it's worth naming them so the picture's honest. Parts made in North America that qualify under the trade agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada get an exemption on their North American content, so a maker on this side of the border suddenly has an edge it didn't have before. Domestic parts manufacturers get room to raise their own prices because the imported competition just got more expensive. Even used cars and used parts get a little more valuable because if new is pricier, people hold on to what they've got. None of that is sinister. It's just where the money flows when you change the cost of crossing a line on a map. Which brings us to the part that actually matters. What do you do about it? Because I'm not in the business of scaring you and leaving you there. A threat you can't act on is just noise, and this one you can act on. First, never accept a lump sum verbal quote on a repair that matters. Ask for an itemized written estimate every single time. On that paper, you want to see the parts listed separately with brand names and part numbers, the labor hours broken out, and any shop fees on their own line. A good shop hands you that without blinking. If someone only wants to give you one round number out loud, that's your signal to slow down and ask for it in writing before you say yes. Second, ask this exact question. Is there a quality aftermarket part or a North American-made part that isn't carrying the same import cost? For brakes especially, this matters. There are reputable aftermarket pads and rotors that are perfectly good for a normal daily driver, and they often don't carry the same premium a dealer part does. You may decide you want the original manufacturer part anyway, and that's a fine choice. But you should get to make it on purpose, knowing there was an option, instead of finding out later there was a cheaper part that would have done the job. Third, before you authorize anything big, look up a fair price range for that repair on a site like RepairPal. 2 minutes on your phone in the waiting room. If the quote is sitting way above the range for your make and model, that's worth a conversation. Maybe there's a good reason, maybe there isn't. And fourth, the receipt I promised you. If anybody tells you these parts tariffs aren't real or tries to sell you the opposite, don't take my word for it and don't take theirs. The order is Proclamation 10,908, issued under Section 232. It's in the Federal Register, dated the 3rd of April, 2025. The parts tariff took effect on the 3rd of May, 2025. Customs and Border Protection published a plain public list of questions and answers about it. Write those down. Go read them. That's the whole point of this channel. You shouldn't have to trust me. You should be able to check. One last thing, and then I'll let you go. The average car on the American road right now is just over 12 and a half years old. That's a record. And a lot of you are in that number on purpose. You're keeping the truck, you're skipping the new car payment, you're being smart. I do the same thing. My own car is old and I have no plans to replace it. But keeping an older vehicle means more repairs. And now those repairs cost a little more than they used to, from more directions than they used to. So budget for it. Set a little aside. Don't let the invoice be the first time you find out. Ownership and control are not the same thing. You own the truck. But the price of keeping it running gets decided a long way from your driveway by people who'll never meet you. The one piece of it you fully control is walking in informed, knowing what to ask, knowing what the paper should say, knowing the difference between a shop earning its keep and a number nobody bothered to explain to you. So next time you're standing at that counter and the printer starts up and the total lands, you won't just see a number anymore. You'll see the whole path it walked to get to you. And that changes what you're able to do about it. I'm Ellen. Go check the receipts. I'll see you next time.